Now again, you can see how fine those shavings are, but again you can feel the smoothness of the profile as you move the gouge. Okay, that surface now is ready for finishing. Now before I do that, I'm just going to start off the hollowing process here. Okay, to do that I'm going to give the gouge something for the gouge bevel to rub on. So I'm just going to again abuse my parting tool and put in a little V cut at the distance that I want the edge to be. Now that's giving the bevel, an edge rather, for this bevel, for this gouge to run on. So I can place the bevel on that edge and then start a cut. That surface now is good enough for finishing, as is this one. So what I'm going to do is do the standard kind of finishing process, run down through the grits. Right, I've sanded this down now to 1200 grit, which I think is enough for this application. That's pretty fine. Just wipe off some of the dust. And what I'm now going to do is use Chestnut Products here, burnishing cream, to do a final polish on this edge. And you should see this this surface here, which is currently pretty well opaque with the fine scratches from the 1200. Well, I can just start to see through it. You should see it turn pretty well clear as this polishes to a mirror finish. Okay. If ever there was a time to use a clean piece of cloth, this was it. Okay. It's tempting to think you need the lathe running really quickly for this, but it doesn't really. I'm going to be 500 RPM. That should be fine. This is a fairly large surface, so I need a reasonable amount of burnishing cream. And on it goes. Just move it gently. What you'll find is it starts to drag. It's starting to pull a bit harder now. And as the cream dries out, starts to clear, and I'll lighten up my touch and off. Now that is pretty well clear. Yeah, in fact I'm not even going to give that a second go. That's pretty good. The challenge will be trying to get that level of clearness when we're trying to polish from the inside. Okay, so it's on with the hollowing now. Okay, so here we are, carrying on with the hollowing. Okay, now I've started to hollow a little deeper, and the thing we need to do now is set the depth at the middle of the hollowing before we start undercutting the rim here. So all I'm doing is taking my calipers and make an estimate of how far the tenon goes in, and then allow a thickness for the base, and I just make a reading off the caliper from that point to the surface. Okay, now the nice thing about the caliper is it then has a protrusion here which I can use to assess the depth, and as I often find, it feels like you've hollowed quite deep, but there's still a very significant distance to go. Right, I've now removed as much as I can, given the bevel angle on here. If this was a steeper bevel, I'd probably add a little bit more. And now I'm going to do another one of my tool abuses here. So what I'm actually going to do is use this edge of the bolt gouge. I'm going to turn this over and use that as a scraper to scrape out the undercut here as much as I can. Now when you do this, there's a danger of digging, but obviously if you take the bolt gouge over far enough, then the other side of the bevel will rub and prevent the cutting. Now if you just come back slightly from that, you've actually got yourself a protected position, whereas if it starts to dig in, the top bevel will rub against the wood and prevent the digging. Now this might be unconventional, it might be abusing the tool, but I find it's a lot easier than moving on to the hollowing tools that I have. So there we go. Right, I'm now going to start hollowing. Unfortunately the only hollowing tool I have available at the moment is this swan neck one, so I've had to move the tool rest away so that the tool rest is resting on the straight part of the tool. Teardrop, I've actually ground that to a slightly sharper point than normal, and we'll just gently, gradually start to hollow away. Right, as you can see now, we've got a bit of advantage over normal hollowing here, is that as I'm starting to break through underneath the wood through to the acrylic, I can see the white surface of the acrylic being created, so I can see how far I've hollowed near this this top area. Okay, through hours worth of patience and just careful hollowing, I've now got that down to a uniform thickness on the rim and all the way down to the flat base where the candle's going to sit. Okay, the next process now is to start sanding the inside.